But you talked about how forgiveness and approval are on the same vibrational frequency,
Mhm.
and I thought about Jesus being nailed to the cross, and while it was going on, he called out to Yahweh, to God, and said, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah, that's." And when you said the approval thing, I was like, "Yeah, of course, Jesus approved. That's how he forgives. It wasn't just something he said." And if you could expand upon what you mean by forgiveness and approval being on the same vibrational frequency.
Well, we look at forgiveness as just letting go, but you're not going to be able to let go of something that you don't really like, basically, you know? What I mean by that is that I feel like in most of the self help field, in the religious field, like all of it, we exalt this idea of forgiveness as if it's possible to just decide to do it, you know, without having any perspective. And perspective is absolutely necessary. Now, when you look at the vibration of forgiveness, it's identical to the vibration of approval. That means in order to really truly forgive something, we're not looking to just get over it. We're looking to assimilate it completely in our life. And to assimilate something, you have to approve of it. So, to assimilate the experience of being nailed to the cross, essentially, he had to approve of that entire act somehow. Now, you can approve, like, maybe you don't approve of murder, right? But there's some element in something you experience that's painful that you have to approve of in order to fully forgive it. So I'll give you a personal example if you want it. Do you want the personal example?
Yeah, for sure.
Because this dawned on me after years of therapy.
Okay, yeah, no, I think it's a huge point, a scary point. I don't think many people like hearing that. Like, oh, I'll forgive him, but I won't. I can't approve him. I'll stop listening now.
Well, that's because we think approval is to make something right. And I feel like we get lost in the idea of rightness and wrongness to a really unhealthy degree because it's all a matter of perspective. I can tell you that. There are people who are you will never be able to win an argument about what's right or wrong because based on your beliefs or whatever, it's right or wrong. you know? Ugh, it just gets shady. But anyways, so so let's go back with forgiveness. So when I was in all of these therapy sessions, people kept saying, you just gotta forgive and move on, forgive and move on. Like I was cutting some piece of myself off and calling it a good, right?
Hmm.
A, could never make that happen. B, never met anyone else who could. C, I'm like, this doesn't work because I'm leaving some aspect of myself there, you know? And when I really looked at it, I mean, like, because of being extrasensory, when I really looked at the two frequencies close enough, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, these two things are so identical. Why are they identical? And then it dawned on me, but it only dawned on me later. So you've got what I went through as a child, which is just, like super bad torture. And one would say you can't ever approve of that. Why would you ever approve of a child being taken or a child being, prostituted or all of the various things which happened? It's not about approving of the action. What it is about approving of the role of it in your life. So when I look back from my perspective now, what I'm starting to see is that without that experience, nothing that I am today could have happened. Now, I can say that because it sounds inspirational, but when that becomes like a true, authentic experience, when you're like, holy cow, I can see a vision now where, women, let's just look at it on this scale. And people may call this like a super grandiose sense of self, but what the hell? Ready?
Hmm.
So let's pretend, basically, that people really need an example of an empowered female. An empowered female would have to have a grasp of what females have gone through over a century. So I'm essentially a microcosm of females' troubles, running up against religious oppression, being seen as a heretic, running up against men trying to use me for sex, trying to dominate, all of that kind of thing, losing babies. I mean, if you look at what I went through, it is literally just like it's a jam-packed 13-year spread of every issue that women go through worldwide and have for thousands of years. So in order for me to reach this exalted state, essentially, of healing and of integration, I would, of course, have to have experienced those types of things. How the hell else am I supposed to teach women to get past that? So now when I'm looking back, I'm like, it's like, wow, you can't create a weapon without the fire. Anything that becomes this beautiful kind of creation, essentially, has to go through the fires. And it was interesting to me because I thought about it, and there's this really good quote. Now I'm not going to remember who did it, but basically the quote was that anything that burns bright must endure burning. Anything that is light must endure burning. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how to really embrace that. And so that on top of looking, so it's all about shifting perspective. On top of looking at the fact that this particular man who I had with me, who took me essentially, I mean, I watched his struggle every day. I started to really see what created this person, who was no monster at all, but was instead just a person who was suffering so bad that he just could do nothing but cause it with other people. And my heart started to break open to a kind of empathy, when previously I just wanted to burn into the ground. And it was organic. I couldn't have forced that. When that kind of light broke through and I started seeing that aspect of himself, I started getting less afraid of him, more compassionate towards him, and more interested in solving the issue at large. How do we make it so that these criminals, so to speak, don't really feel the urge to do these things? And now it's like a greater vision made it so that I can't make an enemy of my childhood anymore, because there's no possibility for me without that. So that caused an approval of what went on. And that approval is the closest you get to forgiveness. That's when you start to feel that thing which we call forgiveness, which is you're not looking back at it as if it's destroyed everything. You're looking back at it as if it actually added something to your life.
Yeah, no, I think that's really inspirational, and definitely I hope a lot of people hear that message over and over again. So thank you for sharing that. And I know we're getting closer to an hour, so